Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Dr. Mohammed Abdul, Coordinator IQAC from D.C.B Girls College, Jorhat. Respected academicians, research scholars, and my dear students friends, it's our privilege to have with us Dr. Jinamani Priya, Principal, D.C.B Girls College, Jorhat, Dr. Uttara Fukan, Vice Principal, D.C.B Girls College, Jorhat, Assam, Dr. Binu Chandra Bora, Joint Registrar, Academic, Dibrugarh University, Dibrugarh, Dr. Uday Hoitia, Associate Professor, Flinders University, Australia, Dr. Jarki Jeli, Lecturer, Flinders University, Australia. Welcome you all to the two-day international webinar on changing scenario of teaching, learning, and evaluation, challenges and tasks ahead. I now request Dr. Jinamani Priyaman to deliver the inaugural speech. Thank you.
First of all, on behalf of the organizing committee, I welcome all the participants and the viewers to this international webinar on changing scenario of teaching, learning, and evaluation, challenges, and tasks ahead. All of we know that in today's world, everything is go online. So why not education? The concept of traditional education has changed radically, and we now enter in a new era, that is the virtual education. COVID-19 related pandemic has catalyzed the online education system because a worldwide lockdown has been imposed to resist the spread of this pandemic. It affects the livelihood across the world, especially our education system has been jolted out of its conventional ways by an unprecedented disruption. UNESCO estimates that more than 1.2 billion students in 186 countries find themselves outside the classroom. To avoid a complete breakdown of the learning process, educational institutions have adopted the online or any other virtual mode for academic delivery to ensure continuity of the curriculum. In our country, adopting the online mode of education is one of the biggest transitions in our educational system. Though online teaching learning gives various benefits like flexibility in time and location, it gives opportunity to access and share information easily and readily. It gives equal opportunity amongst the student and the teacher. It develops digital literacy skill and many others. But it has some limitations. The traditional physical classroom system not only impart knowledge, but also it socialize the student. The significant deficiencies in the online or virtual mode of teaching learning are lack of human contact, absence of collaborative learning, lack of teacher supervision, student-teacher interaction, teachers' motivation, etc., creating lonely and isolating atmosphere for both student and teacher. But in a country like India, academic delivery through a virtual mode becomes a big challenge, where only 15% household has internet connection. Insufficient digital infrastructure, poor internet connectivity, accessibility, speed, stable power supply are the biggest problem. India stands 89th position on internet speed and stability. Besides this, students and teachers both are not so technically expert for this new approach. Apart from this, structural imbalances are still present between rural and urban, male and female, poor and rich in the digital world. With the existing digital device, expansion of virtual education increases inequity in educational outcomes. After all, online education can change the whole future scenario in education. It may increase efficiency and course productivity if developed properly. So drastic change in course curriculum are required. Teachers needs to be retrained or oriented. Education process needs to be changed by making it more practical with the use of technology. Content, delivery, and access. These three will act as a changing agent in shaping up online education. Now, top India 10 universities in India have already started online courses by May 2020. Our Dibrugarh University also decided to start the new session through virtual mode. So it is the need of the hour to discuss the problems and prospects of the new method. I think this webinar will give all the participants and the viewers some clues in this respect. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we have the agenda of keynote space. I request Dr. Snigdha Baranio to give a of the keynote speaker.
Good afternoon, everyone. Respected international speakers and participants, it is my great pleasure to introduce and welcome our keynote speaker, Dr. Binod Chandra Bora, presently working as Joint Registrar, Academic Section, Dibrugarh University. Dr. Binod Chandra Bora has coordinated successful implementation of semester system in affiliated colleges, introduction of the CBCS in both UG and PG level under Dibrugarh University. Dr. Bora at present is actively involved in the task of searching for a feasible and effective alternative education system in COVID-19 pandemic as both immediate and sustainable solution. Dr. Bora is an eminent writer on various issues of higher education, as well as reforms and innovations in education. His area of interest is reforms and innovation in education and alternative pedagogy. Today, we are privileged to have Dr. Binod Chandra Bora on this virtual platform. Sir, I welcome you to deliver your keynote speech.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to congratulate D.C.B Girls College, Jorhat, for organizing this international webinar on a very relevant topic on the changing scenario of higher education, particularly in education and the tasks and challenges we have in front of us. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the principal of D.C.B Girls College, Bhuya Madam, and all the persons who are associated in organizing this webinar. And I would like to congratulate all the participants as well as the resource persons abroad who are going to enlighten us by delivering their observations on this very, very relevant and sensible topic. Respected participants and dignitaries, in fact, a changing scenario in teaching, learning, and evaluation. In this present situation of COVID-19 pandemic, we are in fact in a very critical stage. We are in fact in a very uncertain stage of what to be done or what what should be our future agenda, and what kind of situation is waiting for us in the near future. In fact, sudden a day, on a day of lockdown, the schools and colleges closed, students were forced to remain at home, and now reopening becomes uncertain. Institutions have been asked to adopt alternative pedagogy, mainly through online mode. But of course, as the principal madam has already said, that we were not prepared for disruption of this magnitude. Almost overnight, schools and universities around the world closed their gates, affecting about 1.57 billion students in 191 countries. This unprecedented situation has significantly impacted the lives of students, psychologically, mentally, as well as they are pursuing studies abroad, or whether they are studying in their own country, or even residing in hostels. We asked our students to leave the hostels. We asked our students to go to home, to their families, and to study from there. But the obstacles are multiple, ranging from low connectivity or lack of online content aligned to their courses, and so on. You see, as Principal Madam has already said, that the number of students, the percentage of students who have the facility to use internet connectivity is comparatively low in comparison to the developed countries, and because of that, offering online courses becomes a great challenge in front of us. But even the teachers who try to adopt these means, and the administrators who prescribe to adopt the alternative means for delivering the courses to the students, but it is obviously true, particularly in context of India, that the people were not ready for that. We were not accustomed to use all these devices, all these means in a fluent way. So it becomes a challenge for all to bring a new culture in teaching, learning, and also in evaluation during this COVID-19 stigma, as well as to get relief from our conventional mindset. Our conventional mindset, our inertia also helping to take the pretext of poor network and adverse socioeconomic conditions of average students or below average students, which deters in flawless teaching learning. So in this situation, what we have done, let us have an introspection. At first, locking down ourselves at home considered a national responsibility. We waited for the command or instructions or guidelines from our government as well as from our regulatory authorities. Teachers were asked to help students through alternative devices, through WhatsApp messages, through email, or to take online classes with Zoom or other apps, which are by using the e-resources. But most of the teachers are not familiar to these new tools and the teaching learning, but try to accustom by self-learning. We have not given, honestly speaking, as a part of the university administration, we have not given any training or exposure to our teachers systematically to use all these tools. So they tried, or you are trying to be accustomed with all these new devices or new tools or new techniques by self-learning. Some students took part in these academic exercises, but not as regular and systematic practice. And the institutions are yet to develop a system or customize its curriculum compatible for online teaching. So in this scenario, now we are talking of alternative pedagogy, alternative to alternative mode for teaching, learning, as well as in evaluation. Alternative of what? Face-to-face classroom teaching, we are very much familiar, we are very much accustomed in offering classes by sitting in front of the students in a particular confined classroom. Now we are teaching from remote with new devices. institutional routine-based counseling to learners. We have a routine. We go to college by 9 and return by 4 to 4:30, and within that period, we offer our classes. We take our classes to our students. Now we have a flexible timetable. We can take class at 7 a.m. or we can take class at 8 p.m. also. Working at department with definite infrastructure, that was our existing system. We work in the department. Now we are working from home. We are very much accustomed or familiar with pen and paper examinations and evaluation. Now we are talking of taking online examinations or open book examination or self-examination. And in this entire process, we are arguing that learning becomes more important than examinations or evaluation. The process of learning is very, very important in comparison to the examinations taken after a particular semester or a particular term. Fixed pattern of teaching learning method. Now we have a fixed pattern of teaching learning method. We take classes, we give notes to our students, we take examinations, we do assessment of our students in the classes, in the classrooms. Now we have a broad, flexible pattern of teaching learning method. We are now innovator of many new methods, many new techniques, and definitely these are working in a great way in this adverse situation. But of course, internet connectivity and devices become the most effective tool. And another important aspect, what I'd like to say, that yes, when we are talking of alternative pedagogy, we basically indicate the teaching from remote, or we are basically talking of teaching online. But in a regular class system, what we see, our students are the direct learners who are sitting in front of us in a particular classroom, but now they are learning from remote. Now a question comes to my mind: is it passive teaching or is it passive learning? Is it teaching through active internet connectivity only? When we are talking of online teaching, is it teaching through active internet connectivity only, or is it teaching through mobile phones and computers only? Another important aspect I would like to highlight, that when we are talking of online teaching, we are also simultaneously talking of using the e-resources or the resources or the repositories, utilizing the repositories of e-contents in the, which can be accessible through internet. Now, how to search these e-courses or e-contents? How can we help our students to pursue these courses? Because how far we are accustomed, we are familiar, and we frequently use these resources while we are delivering our courses to our students. When we are taking the classes, how far we are consulting with these resources in the last years. So this is a very important aspect in this present scenario. What are e-contents? How to search the e-contents? How to develop e-contents to our learners? We are familiar of using the contents, we are using the text or reference books written by our fellow faculty members of different institutes. But we don't have that culture of developing e-contents or developing learning materials to our students by ourselves. So now it is the time to develop our own content, our own you must say self-learning materials for the students, which are to be offered to them who can learn by staying at remote. And another important aspect, can offline teaching be provided to our learners as an alternative pedagogy? This is also an important matter. Now, when we are talking of teaching learning, alternative paradigm shift of teaching learning, we are basically talking of teaching from remote, teaching through online classes through different apps or devices or servers. We are like the model server, or there are lots of other devices taking online courses or prescribing online courses which are available in the SWAYAM platform, or which are known as the massive online open courses given by the University Grants Commission or AICT, etc., etc. And using the open educational resources which are very much available in different digital repositories, other resources available through internet or e-contents developed by you and your peer group. So these are the tools of teaching learning in this present scenario. But simultaneously, when we are talking of online courses, some medias are which are very much user friendly, or you may say which may be called the tools of the common people, like the television channels, like the radio channels, or recorded audio or video which can be accessed through online, or the self-learning materials accessible through offline, or the documents, animations, or other materials developed for the students and which are reposited or which are being available in the university or college website. So this can be another important tools. And till that, in fact, I have been repeatedly saying that the television channels or the radios are basically used till date, basically used as the tools of or medium of infotainment. Can the television channels be used exclusively for the academic purpose? Because yes, internet connectivity is very poor in many places. We cannot ensure that all the 100% students can access the internet connectivity while taking the online classes. But at the same time, we can ensure that in a particular slot of time, the students can easily attend the television programs or other programs like that. So the various television programs of University Grants Commission which are being telecast as through Gyan Darshan or Swayam Prabha. Even the universities may also think of developing their own television channels exclusively for the academic purpose, and that will be the medium of transaction of courses of the common average students. Now, another question I would like to put before our esteemed resource persons: who are the teacher in online teaching? Because in the face-to-face regular mode of teaching, what we see, the teacher is the teacher. All the omnipotent person in the classroom. But now, and the students are bound to sit before, they are compelled to sit before them when he delivers a particular course to them. But in online teaching or teaching from remote and teaching to the students who are living in different conditions in diverse situations, now the learners shall have to come to the front of the television, to come in front of the laptop or the mobile spontaneously. Now, I think the willingness of the learner and the teacher both combines as the learner in a particular in online teaching or in alternative pedagogy. Even the teacher, the learner, the guardian, the device itself, and holistically the entire culture. All these elements becomes the most important organ of the process of online teaching. And here, if any of these organs, any of these elements is distracted from the system, the entire exercise will be failure. If the teacher delivers from one end, but the recipients are not receiving the courses, and the environment, the ambience of home is not congenial for an online class, and the device or the network connectivity is not supporting to them, I think the entire exercise will be a failure. So I think this synergy of all these elements will be very, very important in near future when we are going to adopt alternative pedagogy. And another important, I would like to say, I'm just coming to the last part of my speech because the resource persons are waiting to speak on this particular topic in detail. When we are talking of alternative pedagogy or paradigm shift of teaching, learning, and evaluation, is online education is the sole alternative to face-to-face regular mode of education? My question is that, is online education is the sole alternative to face-to-face regular mode of education? And secondly, how far online education is sophisticated, student-friendly, and user-friendly? What may be the effective tools of online education? And what are other affordable, feasible alternatives to online education, which may be implemented as alternative pedagogy of the present face-to-face education in such adverse situation brought by COVID-19 pandemic or any other unexpected, unprecedented situation which may come in near future. In fact, when I'm, this is purely my own idea. This is although I'm a part of the university administration. Plus, please don't take it as the university decision or university policy. It is completely, in my personal view, that we have to move in near future for a blending mode of education, because a synchronized mode of education, and most of the universities have already decided to go for that. In fact, although in near future or in future the colleges or schools will be reopened, but we have to ensure all health protocols, maintaining physical distance and everything, and we cannot ensure that all the students will be able to accommodate in a classroom where there is where we cannot ensure physical distance because of the present infrastructure, as well as the in comparison to the present intake of the colleges. So here we can go for a blending mode of curriculum, 50% credit for online classroom teaching, or about 50% through online learning, or learning from remote, or through SLM, self-learning materials. Here, I'm not talking merely on online classes, rather the 50% courses may be delivered, transacted through online classes, through self-learning materials, or through e-contents developed by the faculty members, or may be procured from other sources, which may be made available in the university or the college websites. The assessment attitude shall have to be changed, because although we have the internal assessment in this present system, but we have to have an systematic emphasis on adopting or emphasizing on formative assessment in place of summative assessment in the end semester or end term examinations, continuous and comprehensive assessment through new devices, through new tools like open book examination, like self-examination. All these tools have to be utilized in a proper way, in a scientific way, so that the learning of the students can be properly assessed throughout the process of learning. More flexibility will be required in entry and exit point of the students in near future, and for that, redesigning of curriculum will be a vital one. A particular part of the syllabus shall have to be assigned for online teaching or teaching through self-learning materials. New learning method will be very, very important for the faculty members. Learning resources or self-learning materials shall have to be developed by the teachers. Attitudinal shift of all stakeholders, because resistance or have to be overcome by all of us with a new vision, with a new idea, and with with a new perspective or aptitude to bring the change in the changing circumstances. Definite objectivity and quantifying the formative assessment tools, that will be also another important aspect. In fact, this is the time to think of immediate recovery requires, and which shall have to be fair and transparent, and which should be, or which must be, in fact, justified for all the students, irrespective of caste, region, standard. More intensive collaboration of the faculty members of different institutes, more intensive interface or reciprocal exchange of resources, students, ideas will be required in near future to develop a feasible model for the students who are living in different adverse situations, in different conditions, under different conditions, but are aspirant of higher education, aspirant of education of good standard, you may say, of not, I'm not talking of international, but a good standard. And we have to ensure the basis of human rights as well as the societal responsibility for all the students. And a review of current regulatory framework, review of course curriculum, designing of new teaching learning methods, and in order to execute all these things, a proper platform shall have to be developed amongst all the colleges and universities. And we have to develop a kind of synergy of all the faculty members working in different institutions and colleges. And we have to extract all the good ideas of all the members, and this is the time to work together. This is the time to fight against all the adversities, against all the challenges, and that is the basic task. Because right now it will be too early to prescribe a particular model which will be effective, which will be appropriate, or which will be useful in the near future. This is the time to experiment all these ideas, to share all the basic things which are related to education system, and accordingly we have to develop the teaching learning as well as the evaluation strategy of our students. But for that, we, all the faculty members, administrators of education institutions, and government as well as the stakeholders, society as a whole, shall have to be affirmed that we need change in these changing circumstances, because we never seen such type of situation earlier. The situation is quite new, therefore we have to think in a new way, and we have to work in a different way because situation is different. Let us introspect what we are doing, what to do, and how can we engage ourselves in a fruitful manner. Because although we are in quarantine right now, we are like in home arrest, most of you like in home, but let's not quarantine our thought, our responsibilities, and also our potentialities. Thank you, and best of luck to all the participants participating from different parts of the country. And I definitely express my best wishes to the resource persons who are going to deliver their speeches from abroad. Thank you, D.C.B Girls College.
Thank you, sir. Sir is very pleasantly elaborating of the webinar, changing scenario of teaching, learning, and evaluation, challenges and abstract. Sir, thank you for enlightening us with all the aspects of the changing aspects of teaching, learning, and evaluation. Hope we all be benefited. Thank you, sir. Now, we proceed to the first technical session of the webinar. For this, we invited Dr. Uday Sir, Dr. Janati Jili ma'am. I request Lieutenant Dorothy J. Momin, Associate Professor, Department of English, D.C.B. Girls College, Jorhat, to give a brief introduction of the researchers.
Thank you, Mommy. I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to all our participants to the first technical session of academic deliberation and discussion by two very renowned international speakers. We are very fortunate to have them amidst us. And I, on behalf of D.C.B. Girls College, would extend a very warm welcome to our resource persons, our international speakers. First of all, let me give you a very brief introduction about Dr. Uday Saikia, Associate Professor, Flinders University from Australia. Dr. Saikia is a social demographer with postgraduate degree from London School of Economics, UK, International Institute for Population Sciences, India, and he had done his PhD from Flinders University. Welcome, Dr. Uday Saikia. I would also like to extend a very warm welcome to our second international speaker from the same university, Dr. Gertie Zili, lecturer from Flinders University, Australia. Dr. Zili is an urban geographic with a background in urban and regional planning, environmental studies, and anthropology. Her core research interests lie in investigating urban regeneration practice and governance and critiquing the various ways and environmental discourses which are mobilized within contemporary urban landscape. She has done her PhD in urban and regional planning from the University of South Australia. Now, without wasting much time, I would like to hand over the time to our two very respected international speakers. Over to you, Answer.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Uday here, and my colleague, Gertie, whom I made a request, and it is very nice to see Gertie decided to kind of agree to join me for the presentation today. At the outset, I'd like to thank D.C.B. College for giving us this excellent opportunity to reconnect myself to my hometown, Jorhat, and the people I know around. I think most of the people probably I know them. So we are quite excited to share about our experience from Flinders University's perspective, and we heard a very insightful keynote speech from Dr. Binod Chandravara. I think it is quite helpful to know what the ground reality is at the moment. So we will probably take around 40 minutes, around 45 minutes to give our presentation. And after that, we are more than happy to open for questions, and we'll be more than happy to answer some of your questions if you have. Gertie, you'd like to add something?
No, I just want to again echo what Uday has just said. So thank you very much for the invitation to address this well-attended forum. We do hope you gain some insight from our discussion today, and we're also quite happy as we go through. If you've got any questions as we move through, please don't hesitate to pop your hand up, and we can perhaps answer them as we go along rather than waiting towards the end. All right, I'm going to now attempt to share my screen because we've actually prepared a PowerPoint for you, which I will forward to you afterwards, Momi, so you can share this with the delegates. So we will see if this works.
Sure.
Can we all see that?
Yes, I can see that.
Perfect.
Mommy, just to make sure, can you see that? It's all right?
So yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. So in the presentation today, more than me, it is Gertie with a long years of experience. She will take the lead of the presentation. Gertie has already got some introduction. Gertie has been at Flinders University for more than a decade now, and in the higher education sector, she has been working for almost near 2 decades, isn't it? Almost 2 decades. So she has a lot of experience in teaching in higher education sector in Australia, and especially her expertise in delivering online teaching. She is quite well known, quite popular in our university for her delivery methods here. And so that's what I think I thought that having Gertie in the presentation would really add value to the presentation today. So we both belong to the College of Humanities, Arts and Social Sciences, Flinders University. We have 6 colleges at the moment. In our structure, administrative structure, 6 colleges. So we belong to the College of Humanities, Arts and Social Sciences. We both are social scientists. That's why our title is Reflections from 2 Social Scientists. In fact, we belong to the broader category of geographers. So we identify us as geographers, human geographers. So the presentation today will be very much from a social science perspective, how we deliver online teaching at Flinders University. Yes. So there are some kind of background information we'll provide initially about Flinders University's online teaching. Then I'll hand it over to Gertie about, she will talk about how we deliver it, what are the advantages, disadvantages of e-learning. And also she will try to share our online platform. Hope it works to some extent. We'll try to share it, how it looks like, what are the content. Again, if you have any questions later on, we are more than happy to answer your questions after the presentation. And just to give you a little bit of historical background, at Flinders University, we started online teaching almost 2 decades back, at around 2000. In fact, when we started our online offerings, it was mainly for the mature age students who normally do not want to come to on campus, and most of them are working. So some 2 decades back, we decided to start distance education, and it was initially predominantly, of course, the paper delivery by post. We used to do that, but then within couple of years time, we changed it to more online version of our delivery system. And then increasingly, it became an integral part of our education system here. So it is not just because of the COVID situation that we are teaching online, because online has been in our education system as an integral part. So it's a more kind of a hybrid education we have been offering to the students for almost now more than around 15 years. So I will hand it over to Gertie to take the lead from here, and in between I'll also correct. I'll also participate and try to assist her. Gertie.
Thank you. I just thought I'd give you some quick background on where we're at in terms of COVID-19. So much like most parts of the world, the university sector was also hit quite hard here. And for us, we started our official lockdown in the second week? Yeah.
Second month.
The second week of March, which came as a bit of a shock. And as Udoy prefaced earlier, we already had online content as part of our normal delivery. But certainly for the subjects that I was teaching, it was a mix of that blended learning that Dr. Bora mentioned in his speech. So we're very much advocates of blended learning, but even still, despite the fact that we have this online mode of delivery, it was still quite a challenge for us that we're quite familiar with this space. So we're going to, today's session will be quite anecdotal. So we're going to go through our experiences. At the moment, this is literally our first week of the second semester. So for the remainder of first semester, we were literally given one day's notice at the beginning, second week of the first semester to go online completely. And that was quite a shock for all of us.
Yeah, it was an overnight decision from our university telling us that from tomorrow we go online. So it was within an overnight, we had to switch everything online. And thankfully we had the system. It was a big decision, but I think we did well.
I think we did. So, but it wasn't just a shock for us as lecturers, as educators, it was also quite a shock to many students. And we also have quite a diverse cohort. So as this decision was made, there were various government announcements. We have a lot of international students who either chose to go home and then continue their studies online, or many who were stuck and didn't necessarily have that internet connection available. So that also presented some challenges, and I can see some synergies with particularly the student experience and the experiences in Assam and more broadly in India. All right, so that's a little bit about where we're at. So second semester, the university made the decision to have all lectures delivered online, but there was an option where possible to run classes face-to-face. Precedence was given to first year undergraduate classes. The reason being is they're fairly new to the university. They might not necessarily be familiar with the online learning system that we have. So the university gave precedence to first year undergraduate classes to have face-to-face classes, and then second and third year levels and postgraduate were encouraged to remain completely online. And part of the reason for that is because a lot of students, not just from overseas, but also from regional parts of South Australia and in interstate, they haven't been able to get back into our state because the borders are shut. So that's given these students the opportunity to continue their studies. But again, that's presented challenges for us. And the second reason we're sort of online and face-to-face is because so I've already mentioned the first year students, and I've lost my train of thought. My apologies. But I'll come back to that point. We might just move on now. All right. So as I mentioned, we at Flinders University, I know that in Assam, in the college, you're using Google Classroom. So Google Classroom is a really good free online platform, but as you've noted, it does come with limitations. So we're fortunate enough, we're a big enough organisation to pay for a learning management system, an LMS. And one of the most popular ones here in Australia and also abroad is the LMS platform called Moodle. And it's great because it's customizable to your institution. And I'm not trying to sell you this. This is just to give you some context in how we deliver this content. So we call ours Flinders Learning Online, or Flow. And this is just an example here on the slide of what the interface can look like. So you can see here, and again, I'll talk more about what you can do with this later on, but this is broadly what your page can look like, and it's essentially your one-stop shop for your subject.
Yeah,
do you want to add anything?
No, that's true. This is kind of here in Australia, that we call it topics, but I know in our subject, I think in India the subject is the most popularly used. So the one Dr. Gertie is showing here, this is the front page of one of the topics, isn't it?
That's right.
So how it looks like the front page, once every student enters the topic flow, which is Flinders Learning Online, the first page comes with this. Yep.
Yeah. So, and this is with an LMS like Moodle, you can also change the view. So this, at the moment, what you're seeing on the screen is the coordinators or lecturers view. Students can see less than that, because you can actually assign them to groups and you can hide things from them if you're not quite ready to show them, and so on. So it's quite malleable. You can change it around, and there's different ways you can also outline your content. So this is just one example that I've given you. Now, there are alternatives to Moodle, and I have worked at a number of other universities in Australia. I've also worked at the University of Melbourne and Deakin University in Victoria, as well as the University of South Australia and the University of Adelaide. So some of these universities use Canvas and Blackboard. The only caveat here is that Moodle, Canvas and Blackboard are all paid services. So, and my understanding, I'm not sure how much they are, but they are quite costly. There's monthly or yearly subscriptions. So just bear that in mind if the college is thinking about adopting one of these. It does come with an expense. However, I think it's a worthwhile if there is the opportunity. I think we both advocate for this. Yeah. And as you all know, you use Google Classroom, but the problem with Google Classroom is if you're using other apps and other avenues, it's very hard to consolidate everything into the one platform, which is why an LMS is far easier, not just in terms of the lecturer's perspective, but also from the user's perspective, so the student. And then another one I thought I'd include, which is also a lot of fun, I think, is Edmodo. So you can follow these up in your own time. All right, so very quickly, I just want to go through some of the benefits and the limitations of using a learning management system or an LMS. So one of the key benefits, obviously, is that these systems are adaptable. You can customize them, you can reuse them. So one wonderful thing we have with Moodle is that we can just roll over content every year. So that includes not just lecture material, but recordings, readings, outlines, grade book, all of that kind of thing just gets rolled over the next year. And so then what we can do then is go back in, and obviously we update content every year to keep ourselves current. And it's much easier to do rather than trying to cut and paste and drag and drop things into another interface. The other wonderful thing about Moodle is, or an LMS, is that they support lots of different content types. So various videos, audio, text, and I'm sure you can think of others. You can also embed apps into that. So again, I think that's a great benefit. Now, one of the key points about an LMS is that it assists you in monitoring participation. Now, I'm not sure what the college does in certain subjects, but certainly at Flinders University, we often have a participation component. Now, when we run face-to-face classes, this participation component is often very difficult to monitor. So we would be looking for things like active engagement. We want to see that students are talking about what they should be talking about for that week, whether it be a reading that they have read, or perhaps a short YouTube clip that we've asked them to watch previously, or any of the activities that we assigned. So, but when you have a class of 25 to 30 students, it's very difficult to appropriately monitor and assess their participation. Now,
can I interfere here? Just sorry to interfere here. Just to give you an idea of, because that system is a bit different from India. Here, I think most of the, I think probably it is happening in India as well. So we have two concepts here, basically. One is, as a lecturer, we deliver the lecture. So lectures are not always compulsory for the students to attend it. It's very rare that we make it compulsory. But what is the compulsory component is the tutorial. We call it tutorial, where the students come in a particular, every week we have a lecture, then the tutorial follows from the lecture. So in the tutorial, what happens, the students, a group of around 20, 25, we divide it in different days. So they come and they discuss the content of the lecture. We create some kind of discussion based on what lectures we deliver. And that is where the participation becomes compulsory. So we monitor the students' participation in the tutorial. And the tutorial gives a lot of empowerment, in fact, to the students to use their freedom, basically to express their ideas. And they are the tutor or the lecturer keep kind of a very passive, not passive. It's a background role. And we make the students to take the lead through some part presentation and all these.
Yeah, thank you, Udo. And I'll be talking about that at the moment. So we have a very different way of learning and teaching here at Flinders. So we're very much advocates of student-centered learning, which is why we have those tutorials. But even for lectures, certainly when I teach, I like to make my lectures interactive, and I also do the same, whether it's face-to-face or online. Okay, let's get back to the benefits of the LMS. So an LMS does provide you with the opportunity to make a fairer evaluation, because what you can do, and again, I'll show you some screens to illustrate this later on, is that you can track students' engagement with the material that you're posting. So you can find out how many times they watched your lecture, how many times they responded to a discussion forum online, how many times they checked the assignment details, and so on. So you can really drill down into the fine details of how a student is actually interacting. And of course, your evaluation depends on your subject's learning objectives. So I'm talking very broadly here. The other thing with an LMS is that it does centralise teaching administration, which makes it a hell of a lot easier for us. So we have a thing called Gradebook that's connected to where the students submit their assignments. So they have digital drop boxes. They upload their assignments there. We can mark them online. We give them immediate feedback, and that grade then gets plotted in to the gradebook. So that has been a godsend, I think, for us. And it can also connect to important resources for students, so the library catalogue, calendars, and so on.
So it is a process of continuous assessment. In fact, students can see how they are progressing through the online listing, where they are as far as the grades are concerned. I mean, from the very beginning and I think from second or third week onwards, we start assessing the students, and they can see their grades for different assignments, different components, how they're progressing.
Yeah, so it helps students take charge of their own learning as well. So they do have access to those grades, but in the same vein, sometimes lecturers don't want to share grades for whatever reason, and you also have the ability to hide that through an LMS. All right, I just very briefly want to talk about the limitations, because with any system, there are also limitations to the benefits. So obviously, and I know this would be particularly challenging in Assam and India more broadly, an LMS does require reliable technology. You need to have a decent tech infrastructure for this to actually work. And teachers need to be willing to adapt to their curricula, from face-to-face lectures to online. So, you know, you need to have reliable hardware, and certainly we had quite a few issues with students in first semester who didn't have decent laptops, didn't have access to stable internet. Believe it or not, we have a lot of black spots here. Our internet infrastructure is not very good, particularly in remote parts and regional parts of the country. So that was challenging, and of course software infrastructure, because sometimes some programs don't work on certain web browsers. And we've also had issues with tech support. So when we made this abrupt transition to online teaching, we had very limited tech staff available, and they were having to cover, how many staff do we have, teaching staff in HAS?
It has. We have around 150.
Yeah, so we have and we had two people basically trying to field all the questions and concerns around delivering content online, as well as assessing. So that is also challenging, and I know it would be a similar challenge in Assam. The other problem is, and we've already sort of mentioned this, is learning solely online can be quite impersonal. It's not the same as being present, and I know certainly from a teaching perspective, I much prefer to be in the classroom where I can see people's reactions, and if I gauge people's body language, I understand whether they are absorbing the content that I'm delivering or whether I need to explain things in a different way. So that I think is a huge challenge. And certainly early feedback that we received from students in first semester, they have said that they did feel that it was quite impersonal at times. Again, I've got some strategies that you can use or potentially adopt to make it a more personal or personable experience overall. The other point from yeah. No, not yet. I'm still done. So sorry. So the other point from a student's perspective is that it can actually present particular challenges for students with different learning styles, because we have to acknowledge that we don't all learn the same. So particularly for auditory and kinesthetic learners, so that the tactile learners that need to see people, to touch, to do things, that can be quite a challenge. Again, I've already mentioned that the cost of an LMS can be quite prohibitive, so you have to bear that in mind. And we also need to bear in mind that some skills and some content is actually better learned in situ, so face-to-face. So for example, physical and medical sciences, you will inevitably have to, be learning in or learning face-to-face. Did you want to add anything?
No, that's
no? Perfect. All right. Okay, we will move on. Okay, so this is just a snapshot of the Flinders e-learning functions. So there's links to assessment, how we collaborate with students. The other function that we can use with students and that we have used with students is Microsoft Teams. So that's another way we can connect with students. Communication, content and multimedia, grades and grading. So all of this, I'm pretty sure you can access. I'm not going to open this now because it might break Zoom, but you have the link there. So please feel free to have a look. And if you can't, we might be able to provide you with a PDF later on. Okay, so in terms of how we develop content, well, the university has a very rigorous set of learning and teaching principles that's applied across all disciplines. So we basically develop our content and deliver it aligned to the learning and teaching principles. And the core of these principles is this idea that students are actually partners in their learning. So we're very much about constructivist pedagogy. So it's about students, taking charge of their learning and being partners. And I've given you an example here, and this is just another screenshot of one of my topics Moodle pages. So the way I've ensured or tried to facilitate students being partners with me in their learning is to actually give them little surveys about how they found a particular assessment or a learning outcome or what they want to learn. So that requires us as educators to also be flexible. I know flexibility was mentioned earlier. So we also have to be quite malleable to cater for these needs. So this is something that I embedded. I gave them a particular task. It wasn't assessed, but it was to help them write better essays. And their essays were worth quite a big proportion of their overall grade. So I thought it would be a good idea for them to start this early and at least have discussions with each other, because again, that facilitates good learning practice. So I gave them this survey and then I realised, well, this exercise didn't work. And so then it prompted me also to reflect. Normally, I would administer this type of task face-to-face in a classroom. So this was the first time I'd actually delivered it online. So doing this allowed me to change the way I do things in situ before, the end of semester. Okay, so in terms of the objectives we want to achieve, again, all of our content and our assessment is developed to align with the subject's core learning objectives. So LO here on the table stands for learning objectives. So you can see here how certain assessments then align with particular learning objectives. All right, now this is probably what you want to know most of all. So this is, how do we deliver all of this? Now, as we mentioned in Dr. Bora's presentation, blended learning is actually the preferable mode of delivery. But I've just given you an example here on the slide of the types of activities and modes of delivery that we've been doing, not just during COVID times, but pre-COVID times as well. So I'm just moving my thing around. Oh, that's better. Okay, so we conduct real-time lectures and tutorials with students, much like this, like a Zoom session, so we can do it live. But the one thing I do to cater for students who are perhaps in a different time zone, or for those students who don't have reliable internet access, I record this. So I don't make this participation compulsory because it wouldn't be equitable. So often I'll do real-time lectures and then record them, and then students can participate through a text-based discussion forum if they have any questions. Conversely, when COVID-19 kicked off here and we had to move online, I actually started by pre-recording my lectures and then doing a text-based discussion. But I found students were quite disengaged And I could monitor this because I could see how many people were clicking on the lecture and watching it. So this is why I decided to actually give the opportunity for those students who can be present online to watch and interact with me. And that worked quite well. And I think you did the same.
Yes.
Yeah. The other thing we have done, and I continue to do, and this was pre-COVID times, is what we call a flipped classroom. It's very well known. It's a very well-known technique in pedagogy circles. So this is where it's a type of blended learning, and it's focused on the students' engagement in terms of their active learning, and it gives us as instructors a better opportunity to deal with mixed levels of competence, of student difficulties, and also differentiated learning preferences during in-class time. So what we do here is we might ask them to watch a clip of us or a YouTube clip, and then our session will be live or in a discussion forum scenario. And then we actually talk about that content or critique that content in real time. And that can be via video. It can also be text-based. Are there any other ways that you've done? These are the ways, yeah. The other thing to get students involved, and this is also part of the assessment, so we ask students to do real-time presentations, much like this, in which we can assess. That can either be video, it can be just a PowerPoint with an audio annotation. So this would serve students quite well if they don't have regular internet access, or if they have poor hardware infrastructure. We also have, I went completely lo-fi, so I had text-based discussion forums in place of face-to-face tutorials. This can be a little bit monotonous for students when they have to discuss a certain topic in a discussion forum amongst each other. I found that maybe 30 or 40% of the students became quite disengaged. So to help them become more engaged, I created extra videos to encourage them to continue. And this seemed to work, and I'll show you that video towards the end. Another good thing with LMS is that you can embed quizzes. So these can come embedded in the LMS, but you can also use external platforms. So I do this when I'm teaching face-to-face, but it's easily transferred to an online forum. So you can use Kahoot. You can get them to complete the Kahoot, like for revision purposes. You can get them to do a poll everywhere type quiz, SurveyMonkey. There's loads of different options out there. But essentially what we do is we use VARC as, I guess, the core principle on how we encourage and diversify engagement, particularly in an online teaching forum. So VARC stands for visual, auditory, reading, writing, and kinesthetic learning. So the way I try and capture the more kinesthetic learners is by using things like QR codes, augmented reality, and also virtual reality. I know it's probably blowing your minds and you probably don't have the tech, but if you have a mobile phone, then you can actually create things from the comfort of your own home to engage these types of learners. And we've actually done one here for you. So if you are not watching this through your mobile phone, if you're watching this through a tablet or a computer and you have your mobile phone handy, I encourage you to use your QR code scanner and scan this QR code on the slide.
Yeah, if you can put your mobile phone through the scanner in that, if it works for somebody, can someone say yes? It might work, or it might, I'm not sure.
So before we move on, we'd like someone to try it and let us
Yes.
know that it works, please.
Mommy, can I request you to, if you are in front of your computer, can I request you to check your mobile to scan it? You know that barcode you can see there?
Yes, sir. I'm trying.
Or if it works for someone, you can send a text message, in the chat messages there.
Yes.
It works.
Sir, it is seen. Sir, it's okay, sir. We can scan it.
Okay.
It's
Did
okay,
it
sir.
take? Okay. So did it take you to our university website or somewhere?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Yes, sir. We
great.
have seen it.
So that means it is working. So that anyway, you can continue.
It's
Perfect. So it's little activity. Thank you, Dr. Momi. It's little activities like this that keep students engaged. And obviously you can attach meaningful content to this. So for the purpose of today, we've obviously given you a link to our university's webpage, but you can do all sorts of things. Like you could attach this to an instructional video that you have shot. So you're actually quite, you're not limited by just giving people URLs. Okay, let's move on.
These are basically the techniques to keep the students engaged and to enjoy the online, especially young students. They love this kind of technology. So this way, kind of, it's one way of keeping them engaged, in fact.
Yeah. And before we move on, I know assessment is a big problem when you're teaching solely online. And so one type of assessment mode that Udoy and I regularly use is what we call a take-home exam. So again, a take-home exam does have benefits and limitations, but in terms of the content that we teach, we're about assessing understanding. So we don't want students to regurgitate a series of facts that they've memorized. We want them to apply all the knowledge that they've acquired throughout the semester, excuse me, and apply this in a take-home exam scenario. Now, the way this is run, it's usually text-based, and we give them a time limit. So that can be a couple of hours to a couple of days. And I think it's been quite successful.
It's quite popular.
Successful.
It's not just because of the COVID situation. Take-home exam we have introduced quite long time back again. As Dr. Gatti said, that it's different from the conventional exam. Instead of going to an exam room and writing in 3 hours, we give them maximum 3 days, I think. And of course, they take the question paper, they can write the answers from anywhere, either from home, either from sitting in the canteen, sitting somewhere. I mean, they can use all the resources they want to use. But what we do is what makes it different from the conventional exam is the take-home exam. We do not ask a direct question, as Gertie briefly mentioned that. We do not ask what is this theory is about. We always want to see the critical thinking. So every question will have a component there, how they're critically analyzing that one, because it is open book. It's like an open book. You take the questions home, but you are not supposed to write it. We are not giving a question just to write what what this theory is about, who introduced theory, not those type of questions. Basically, it is about a critical reflection. So although conceptually it looks easy that you get the question paper, go home, you have the books and all, but in the assessment, in fact, it is quite difficult, quite tough for students, because we look into the level of critical thinking, and that is very, very, very crucial in our education system here. How to develop the critical thinking for any topic. Yep.
Thank you. All right, let's move on. Okay, so now I just thought I'd quickly give you an example of, again, similar to the QR code. One thing that I have done in the past is deliver lectures or part of lectures in 3D. I know it seems crazy. So on the slide there is one of my second year geography classes, and I was talking about representation and reality. So that obviously lended quite nicely to a 3D lecture. But although what you're seeing on the screen is what I did in class, you can easily apply this online. And you can actually get students to make their own 3D glasses just by using red and blue cellophane. So or you can buy them, and I picked up these on eBay. I picked up a pack of 50. But anyway, this is one way that you can get those kinesthetic and visual learners more involved. Okay, now the next couple of slides are just screen grabs from our Moodle teaching platform. So you can see here, as I said at the start of our presentation, this is really a one-stop learning and teaching shop. So you can do anything from creating announcements. You can have Q&A forums. So if, yes.
Anyone saying something? Yeah, we'll be finishing very soon though. Yeah.
I'm sorry. we will finish. We'll hurry.
Yeah.
So you can also embed video capture technology. So we actually use an application called Collaborate, but you can certainly add a WebEx or Zoom even. I think you can probably add an app there. So students have the one place where they watch the lectures online. Oh, that's okay. I don't think it's working. There we go. Okay. The other point, I think, Udoy, you wanted to very quickly talk about topic or subject guides or syllabus guides.
Yeah. This is another system. I mean, it's not just online. Every topic we teach, we always create a topic guide in advance. The topic guide is very important for any student. Like we give it in the very first week of the lecture. Topic guide details about the whole assessment process, and it also mentions about the readings they need to cover the lectures and all the details we have. And also topic guide gives you the learning outcome at the end of the topic, what they will come out with, what are objectives basically. So basically it is a kind of a booklet we produce to give an overall idea about what we are going to deliver in one semester, how they are going to be assessed, and where they are going to get the resources from, and what are the other support systems they can get within the university.
So even if students have intermittent internet connectivity, what they can do, they don't necessarily need to fall behind. If they have their topic guide, which they can print, or potentially the university or college, as we used to do, could send it out to those more remote students or the more disenfranchised students, and they will still have, they'll be able to keep up to date with the core materials that they should be working through. And again, as I mentioned before, this platform also allows you to manage your grades. My mouse has just disappeared.
And one more thing I would like to add here is in the front page of our Learning Online, we have a link to our video of our lecture, because every lecture we deliver is recorded. So the team behind it, once we finish our lecture, it is immediately uploaded to online. So even if the student somehow miss the particular lecture, they can anytime they can access it from anywhere. So each and every topic we deliver, the lectures are recorded, and within minutes after the lecture it is uploaded and it is available in the front page.
Okay, so again, I know you're all interested in grading, and so this is just an example, a snapshot of gradebook and what it looks like. So in the column on the left-hand side where it says first name, surname, you have the student's name, the email address, the topic or subject total, and then a breakdown of all of their assessments. My mouse has just disappeared. Yes, there are just different assessment columns. In terms of tracking and grading participation, so once you're in gradebook, you can click on a student's name, and so this is another one of my students from first semester. So we can see here on that first image there with the orange circle, you can track how many times they've logged on to the site in one day, all of their logs, the statistics, and their overall grades.
So basically for each student, we can monitor each visit to the on flow and how many times they have read this article, how many times they participate in the in the group discussion, and sometimes, in fact, how many times they logged into the flow. That is also, sometimes we see some of the students not coming online for 1 week. Then we send a small email or kind of, a warning email saying that I haven't seen you online for 1 week. What's going on? And it's a bit of a surprise for them that how we monitor it, but we can see them.
Yeah, they're often surprised that they know that they haven't watched a certain thing, or also it's great for tracking assessments. So if you have an assessment deadline, it tells you how many days it's taken them to submit that. And you can see here, there's just a screen grab of how many times this particular student or when that particular student logged on to see certain things. So a research outline, they looked at that twice. So obviously they knew what they were doing.
And how long.
And how long, yes.
You can also monitor how long he has read that particular guideline. And
then we can also quantify this through graphs. So here we can see total views for the topic, the number of posts they've made. So that's really important when you're trying to assess and monitor student interaction with online content. So if you have discussion forums, if they only posted 2 times through the whole semester, and they were supposed to post 20 times, well, you can certainly fail them for that component. Okay, so I think we are almost. I think we do have another couple more slides. So very quickly, although we've run classes or online subjects, so completely online subjects for over 10 years, this sort of abrupt transition to exclusively online teaching, learning and assessment has also presented us with some very unique challenges, but also some opportunities. So I don't want this to be a negative discussion, because it has also presented us with some really good opportunities, particularly in terms of how we might consolidate what was core teaching and what are the core learning outcomes and how do we best deliver that. And one thing I did mention at the beginning, I also have an interest in higher education, particularly in the discipline of geography, and I've published a number of papers, and I do research on this as well, which is part of the reason why Udoy invited me to speak with you all today. And also, I think one thing we forget, we get caught up in just delivering content and assessing. We need to also reflect on our practice. And I think this has given us time to pause and to reflect on how online learning works and how our delivery might be improved to increase engagement and promote student interaction. So as we mentioned previously, of course, there have also been and continue to be some challenges. So we are still dealing with issues with remote learners. So that could be people within the state, but in regional areas that have poor internet connectivity. Also interstate students. I know I've got a couple of students this semester that are stuck in Victoria, which I don't know if you know, but it's in
Melbourne, basically.
Victoria, Melbourne, yes. They're in lockdown from the rest of the country. And as I've mentioned before, hardware issues, particularly if you're in a share house or sharing hardware, for example, with a partner or a family member, that can be quite challenging. Device sharing. Software connectivity, data allowances was also a particular problem here for us because many students aren't financially well off, and they often have only, the way our internet plans work here is that you have data allowances every month. So the typical data allowance for a mobile phone plan is 2 gigabytes. Now, if you're streaming content and if you're required to watch lectures 2, 3, 4, 10 times a week, that is going to chew up your data allowance. So to make it more equitable, what I did is I made these sessions, I didn't make them compulsory. And I also encourage students to interact in different ways, so through text-based discussion forums, which weren't as data intensive. So there are ways around that. And again, one of the key things, I know Udoy's giving me the hurry up, but one of the key things is maintaining engagement, not just for ourselves, but for students. I know I get sick of talking in front of the screen. That's why it's actually good to have Udoy here. So maintaining engagement has been quite challenging. And of course, one thing we haven't really talked about is staff expertise. So I know a lot of people, my colleagues that were thrown into this solely online teaching space, they really struggled with getting their heads around technology and applications that they had never used. So we need to consider the possibility of upskilling. And we're fortunate enough that the university does offer us opportunities to engage in upskilling sessions that are run by experts. But again, it also comes down to time. So a lot of us are quite overloaded. So it's finding that time and space to actually engage in these.
But they're recorded and they're available.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And of course, tech support, which I've talked about before. So I guess the key message, particularly teaching in COVID times and maybe post-COVID times, who knows how long this is going to go on for. My particular experience is that I've had to provide more of a pastoral care role than I have in the past. So I was really trying to be there for students to, maintain their engagement with the topic, but also to ensure their well-being. And one of the ways that I did that is I created light-hearted videos that I would post on our Moodle page every week. And this content was far more relaxed than a typical lecture or tutorial. And so I talk about things not just related to our content, but about what I was doing and how I was coping, and also what services the university was offering. So counselling services, to tips on healthy eating and all of this sort of pastoral care well-being during the COVID situation. And feedback has been amazing. So although it was challenging for me to keep thinking of different ways to entertain them, and they were only 5-minute videos because I made sure that they were very short grabs, so students who didn't have regular access could still watch these. It was challenging for me, but it was also quite cathartic for me to do this, and it helped me be a more reflective and reflexive teacher. So I guess the key message is to improve your pastoral care, however you want to do that. The other way I did that is by making myself available more often to students. So I would offer Zoom sessions, one-on-one sessions, in addition to just giving class content. And many students took up that opportunity. We have to be innovative. So, you know, don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone. And I think, yeah, we have to be flexible. And I think these three things are just as important as the traditional content delivery and assessment. I'm not going to, should I play the video? I don't know if it will work.
All right. I would like to add one more thing is that we talked about the student assessment, but in our flow system, the learning online system, there is at the end of the topic, the students also evaluate us. It is called SET, Student Evaluation of Teaching. So every topic has that provision. It is not compulsory for the students, but they can assess us at the end of the semester, and it creates a report about us, how we delivered it, how efficient we are in teaching, how efficient we are in delivering it. So, and it creates a very nice report, and the report, of course, goes to our bosses. You know, they can see us. So it is not just that we are assessing the students. Students are assessing us as well through online at the end of the topic, which goes to, you know, our kind of seniors who then gives comment on how we can improve. We have annual review process. In that process, they go through our reports and they tell us what we can improve upon. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I won't, should I show the video? I'm not,
Yes,
I'm not
just
sure.
try.
I'll show you an example. So this video is the last Friday check-in session that I gave my undergraduate and postgraduate subject students to foster that sense of belonging and connectedness, even though we weren't physically present. So this is just the final one that I created as a thank you to my students.
I think that's session.
Namaskar.
Yes, namaskar. So any question? We took a bit more time. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Dr. Saikia and Dr. Gertie, for your wonderful deliberation on such a pertinent topic. We have a few questions. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, yes.
Yes, you are.
Yes, you are.
Okay, yeah. So the first question is by Mr. Plavan Bhuya, and his question, it's like two questions together. The first one is how to mitigate the digital divide among the students during and after COVID-19. That is the first part of the question. And the second part is, what initiatives should be adopted to get rid of stress management among students as they are disconnected from traditional teaching learning mode for a long period of time? So these two questions are by Mr. Plavan Puya.
Second question, do we need to answer? The second one.
Yeah.
I mean, these are very, very good questions, but very complex to answer. I mean, it depends on where you are, basically. I mean, from an Australian education system, probably the digital divide is not that much as what happens in many other developing countries. And I can absolutely understand the value of the question. We do not have a very clear answer to that, because it will quite a lot depend on the government policies back in India. I mean, if we how you kind of narrow the gap in the digital divide, and it is growing, and it is sad to see that some students are deprived of that digital revolution because of the cost related, because of the internet and all these things. So one thing, probably what I can suggest based on my experience, but probably it's not a very matured answer, but please forgive me because I'm talking from an Indian perspective. If you know the way, if we can have established online thing somehow, somewhere you get a budget and we have done it, then probably we can utilize this. It's not that everything has to be always on live, isn't it?
No, that's right. It doesn't have to be live.
So if you have the content, then myself, I can give you an example. I work in a small country called East Timor, and they're also, it's a developing country, got independence around 2000. So what they do, they have a youth center. I'm not talking about a university, but I'm talking about the youth center to reduce the digital divide. Through UNDP, United Nations Development Program, they establish some community centers in the remote areas. So what they do, some of them, they visit the rural areas and they go there, and one specific day, they devote it for that online system, and where the students from that particular area, they come and they spend the day there. So it is a bit costly, it is time consuming, but that is one way that some of the developing countries are doing in collaboration with international organizations like UNDP.
Right.
But again, Australian context, the second question.
The second question, Dorothy.
Yeah, ma'am. Actually, you have already said a very important, you have given your opinion on that already. So I think the second question has already been answered to some extent. Yeah.
So can I just quickly add to that? So connection is making yourself more available, but we're very fortunate enough at Flinders University to have the wider infrastructure for things like mental health support and student union. The student union is also integral in reaching out to students and providing activities and ideas of how to cope, you know, with being cooped up for months on end.
The support system is here, I can say excellent.
It's very good.
Very, very good. The counseling system, and also from the very beginning when the corona started, our Vice Chancellor kept sending email to the students as well as to the academic staff on a very regular basis, kind of a not weekly, at least fortnightly update, what's going on, what we should do, what are the things we should do for the students to cope with it. So there are certain guidelines we were kind of sent by the Vice Chancellor on a regular basis. That helped us a lot. And also to the student community, they took care quite well.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. We have another question. This is from Geeta Sharma. Her question is, how is e-learning adopted as a learning method in your university or any other country? And the second part is, can places like Assam or any other developing states in India adopt advanced techniques as a learning pedagogy?
So I think our presentation overall addressed how e-learning is a mode of education. It is a method of delivery, but as I prefaced at the beginning, we're very much advocates of blended learning, if we can. So if we have the opportunity, particularly for geography, where we also have field trips, it's really important for us to have a mixture of both.
It's a hybrid.
It is a hybrid, yeah.
Right. Thank you, sir, and thank you, ma'am. Again, once again, there is another question, and maybe most probably the last one. This is from Dr. Nita Lagachutae, and she would just like to know about the online learning options available for the differently abled learners in this pandemic, if there is any, like.
Yeah, okay. That's a really good question. Thank you for that. So I will give you an example. So I have, I'm about to start teaching a subject where I have a deaf student enrolled. So obviously running all of this online will present certain challenges because you can't hear. Again, this comes down to the support that we have at the university. So the way we're managing that is that they actually have a translator who will provide a transcript of what I'm delivering to that student. So that's just one example that I can think of.
Right.
Yes. Other support, again, it is university provides a lot of support for students cohort in that situation. It's quite broad. It's very difficult to talk about all these dimensions, but we have a very good support system here, and that is special care is taken for this cohort of students.
And some of the most disenfranchised students, so ones that didn't necessarily have access to basic things like a laptop or an internet connection, they were eligible to apply for very small scholarships, so they could access these this hardware that they needed. And we also have the library providing extra support in that way. But obviously, both of those examples are very temporary measures.
Okay, so I think we have almost come to the end of the first technical session. Thank you so much, Dr. Gertie, Dr. Uday Saikya. Thank you for being so resourceful to us, and we hope that your deliberations will surely prove helpful to all our participants. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Can I just finally add one thing? Sorry,
yes,
I forgot.
Sure.
Sorry. I mean, if your college or someone in Assam is interested in doing some collaborative work to develop this kind of platform, not just Flinders University, but somewhere in Australia, I can probably request you to visit. There is something called Australia-India. Australia-India. What is it called? Under different. It comes under Australian government website.
Okay.
And they do provide funding for this kind of initiative to promote education, to collaborate, and especially in this kind of situation, I think they have now a lot of COVID-related grants they are providing where institutions can collaborate to promote each other. I mean, especially in this situation, I think it is worth visiting the website. I'll send you the link.
Right.
So if you are interested, probably it is an opportunity to apply for some funding from Australian government and then to collaborate in developing this kind of platform. Sorry.
Thank you, sir, for this very useful information. Once again, we'd like to thank you on behalf of the college. Thank you.
Thank you.
Over to you, Mommy.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Now we proceed to the second technical session. We invited Supranta Sarma as our international speaker. So I request Dorothy C. Mohammed ma'am to take over the sirs.
Okay. Once again, I'd like to welcome all our participants for the second technical session. And for this academic deliberation, we have with us Supranta Sharma Barua, and he is actually he was a student from Assam who appeared in his IIT JEE in 2011, and his All India ranking was within 1000. He joined IIT Kanpur for his bachelor's in physics. He was a KVPY fellow and completed his bachelor's and master's in 2016, and now presently is pursuing his doctoral study in the University of Waterloo, Canada. Welcome you, Supranto. So good to see you, and we really feel proud and privileged to welcome you to this webinar. So without much delay, I would like to hand over the time to Supranto.
Sure. Thank you so much. It's good to be speaking here. So let me first share my screen. Just a moment. Yep. Yeah. Thank you for inviting me to speak on in this webinar. So I mean, you already gave a good introduction to myself. I had a slide about myself. Probably I won't go much into that. But just my trajectory until till the present day here. So I did my schooling in Jorhat, and then I moved to Guwahati for my higher secondary education. Before which, after which I went to IIT Kanpur to do my bachelor's. And since 2016, now I have been doing my PhD here. So my research here is concerning cosmology, basically. So if there's anyone who's interested in these topics and want to chat about it, just send me a email and I'll get back to you. I would be happy to chat about that. So last time I participated in an event in D.C.B. college, I think I was in class 9, and there was this wonderful workshop on mathematics that was conducted jointly by D.C.B. college and Science college. And it was a really wonderful event that happened, and it definitely helped me later in my career as it went on. So when I was asked to speak in an event in D.C.B. At D.C.B, I was like, I accepted it very promptly. I thought that it was a very nice opportunity for me to speak. Until I started making my slides, and I'm like, I realized that I would be talking to people who has 25, 30 years of teaching experience, and here I am. I'm yet to graduate. So I asked myself, what can I really say, which is which adds value to the understanding of the very experienced people. So I finally decided that there's probably 2 things I can do that can possibly add some value to value. So one is basically I can give you a perspective of what I'm seeing in University of Waterloo, and if there are some things which can be directly applicable in the Indian context. And secondly, I won't pretend that I have answers to everything, but rather I'll ask some questions that may be, that may lead to fruitful solutions. And I think that's the one that I'll do mostly. So the talk is mostly set up in a interactive way. I'll stop in a few places to get some input. So I know that it was supposed to be structured in a 1 hour plus 15-minute interaction, but I would actually appreciate it if people interacts throughout the talk. If it's so for the organizers, I mean, a question. So is that a problem if people ask question in between the talk?
Okay.
Sorry, is that okay?
Yes, we have no problem.
Okay, I probably won't be able to monitor the chat because I won't be able to do both. So if there's anything on the chat, if you can just interrupt me and tell me that there's a question, that would be great.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, sure. So to begin with, let's start by, this is nothing new, but let's start by identifying some of the challenges which are global in nature, in some sense. So uh, the first thing that happened when COVID hit, during the first lockdown, the first thing that was impacted were schools and colleges. They were the first to close. I remember even before the nationwide lockdown hit India, schools were closed in Delhi and Pune and all the other cities. So almost overnight, there was this need to shift from the traditional classroom view to using multiple online tools. You have Zoom, you have all sorts of other things, and we don't really have the training to deal with all of these. And so that has been a challenge for both teachers as well as students. So there has been this need to shift very quickly. So that was the main challenge and this is a challenge everywhere. So most of these points on the slides are a problem for students and teachers throughout the world. The second thing is also that, although we usually think of schools and colleges only as educational institutes, these also provide the platform for both teachers as well as students for social engagement and psychological development. So for example, I know for a fact that, D.C.B College has had uh, a track record of producing some of the best singers in the area. So now now students who are, who has that interest cannot follow it anymore. And this is just one example, and there are multiple such things going on everywhere. Colleges, especially college, it's not only about educate, like developing technical skills. It's also about all-around development, and that has been impacted because of COVID. So we need to remind ourselves of that. And this also directly has some mental health consequences. Apart from the isolation, you don't have a support structure that usually is available to you. So that makes mental health of immense importance in the current time. Then, of course, for especially for teachers, uh, you know, the work at home has probably gone up because of staying so much time at home, and especially for people who have young child, now have to spend a considerable amount of time educating their children in addition to performing their role as a teacher. So that has added to the workload of a teacher. Then of course, this is related to the first point that even though we have had to change overnight from a traditional classroom environment to online environment, we didn't have that investment in online resources before the pandemic. So we don't have a technical infrastructure to deal with such a change overnight. And this is true everywhere, but it's especially relevant in the Indian context. And the third and last point, which is something that was asked in the question answers of the previous talk, was this disparity in the access to internet amongst different amongst people. So of these, all of these are global challenges. Countries around the world, developing as well as developed countries, are facing these. But the two things which are especially important for the Indian context are the last two. And I want to go just a little bit further on these 2 points. So first, regarding the investment in online resources, and here's a comparison. So by the way, this spending is the general spending on overall education. So I'm quoting these numbers from I forgot the source exactly, but so this is the total spending per capita for 2 countries, for India and Canada. As you can see, like the spending, and this is true for almost all developed countries. So the spending in the developed countries is almost 50 to 60 times what is being spent in India. And the reason I'm showing you this is because because of this disparity in investment in education, you cannot translate a solution that is proposed in the developed world directly into the Indian context. It's just because if you want to dig a tunnel, and if there's one person who has a bulldozer and there's another person who has a spade, it's just not doable to do it in the brute force manner. You cannot use the same set of solutions. So what you need is you need clever out of the box solutions. When I was in Kanpur, there was this word that was very, very frequently used. It's a Hindi word. It's called jugaad. So we need solutions which are basically jugaad to have sustainable solutions to this problem. And this is especially important. Finding a solution to educating the youth properly is also important, especially because we have India has the largest youth population in the world. So we need good solutions to cater to the largest youth population of the world. The second main problem when it comes to proposing any solution is as someone put it in the question and answer session of the previous talk, it's the digital divide. So this map of India shows what is the percentage of rural households in India who has internet access. And if you look at India, if you look at Assam, the access of internet for rural households is somewhere between 10 and 20%, and that's really low. Given that we are thinking about online solutions to continue the education of people. We all know that there is a digital divide, and it's good to just check what the hard numbers are, and that's the reason I show you this. There's another of the study which basically showed that across India only 23% have internet access amongst all Indian households, and in rural households it's even less, like close to 15. That is the annual average. And there's also there's also a gender disparity in access to internet in the whole of India. And it's not just internet, but also the electricity supply to different places. So in the rural households, it's around 33% only gets close to 9 to 12 hours of regular electricity, and around 16% of Indian households receives less than 9 hours of electricity every day. So this doesn't make our work easier. If in these challenging times, coming up with any strategy is difficult. But what this digital divide asks us to do is that we need to come up with strategies that not only make education accessible, but it makes it accessible in an equitable manner. So that's the main challenge, I believe. So how do we actually address this divide? It's this question. I was asking myself this question yesterday, and I don't think I have an answer, but I have a proposal, and I want to know of your feedback of what you think about it. So the typical solution of effectively moving everything online is probably not going to work in India, especially not in the short term. And by short term, I mean until the pandemic is over, because we don't have the technological infrastructure to deal with this very well. So it seems like the only solution that can equitably, address the digital divide and still continue to pursue, continue to help people pursue their education is some sort of hybrid model of, having some online component and plus some in-person activity. And this can, in principle, be more equitable as well. And also, I mean, it's good to invest in such a model because, I mean, if you develop such a model in the long run, it's very likely that that will become the default post-COVID as well. The question, however, is that, if you have in-person activity, can you do it safely? So I mean, I would like to have some feedback on what hybrid models are feasible. Hello? Yeah, I'm hearing. Okay. Sorry, I can hear some noise with this. Okay, I'll keep continuing. So, if you, sorry, there's someone whose audio is okay. Anyway, so to explore some of the pros and cons of of a hybrid model. So first of all, I mean, if we have a hybrid model, it definitely reduces the complete reliance on technology that has currently challenged a lot of teachers and students. Hello. Hello. Is there a question? Okay, no, sorry, I heard some audio disturbances. Yeah. Anyway, so to continue from where I was, so some of the pros and cons of this hybrid model is that, because you have partly physical instruction in such a model, it reduces the reliance on technology that has challenged most of, a lot of the teachers and students. And potentially, if we have such a model, it definitely helps us address the digital divide at some level. But the moment you open up some sort of in-person activity, it definitely increases the risk of, in terms of the pandemic. And the challenge essentially is to how do we manage such a risk better, in a way which allows for, I mean, there will always be some risk, but can we manage it well? So do people have any input on any other pros and cons of having a hybrid model, for example, in Jorhat, for example? Is there any input on that? I would really appreciate some input from people on this. I'll wait for a minute to see if there's any input from people. Otherwise, I'll just continue from here. Okay. So if there's no feedback on this, I'll just continue onto the next section. Next slide. Okay. So now, how do we actually and try to minimize the risk that's posed by in-person activities if we were to continue such things? So possibilities are, like, can we have multiple batches of students? For example, in University of Waterloo, the plan in the fall term is to have both have some in-person activity and some online activity. However, in all of these classes, I think the plan is to operate at 1/6 of the full capacity. So um, if you have a classroom which can accommodate 150 students, you will only allow in 25 students at a time in that big classroom, so that you can have social distancing measures when you're doing it. For the other possibilities and out of the box solutions could be that can there be outdoors classes? If there are scientific evidence for reduced transmission of COVID-19 when you're doing it outdoors. Of course, in Assam, a possible obstacle is, of course, the weather. But nevertheless, I wanted to pose this as a potential solution to to continuing in-person activity, and I would like to know your thoughts on what you think about such possibilities here. And apart from that, the moment you open up your classes, you also need to make sure that you have face masks, you have hand sanitizers, insufficient supplies, also for the classrooms, because if you are continuing in-person activities, you would need all of these with you. And the same thing goes for hand washing as well. Furthermore, can we think of strategies such that even if there's a in-person activity, you reduce the exposure to the most vulnerable groups? So if you have your parents, or if you have in your household people over the age of 60, over the age of 70, can you make sure that they're not exposed to this? You are not in direct contact with those people, for example. So those are questions you need to ask yourself if you continue to have in-person activity at some point. And so if you have any input on this, I would really like to know what you think about any of these. So for example, do you think that outdoor classes are possible? If not, why? And things like that. I'll again wait for a minute to see if there's any question, otherwise I'll just proceed.
Okay, Supranto, I have an observation here.
Sure.
As we have already talked about the outdoor classes, and
Right.
I think the Assam government is also planning to open up schools by September shortly, schools and colleges. But
Right.
we are having interactions with parents, and most of the parents are not very, they are hesitant actually to send children to school. Like even if from our side as faculty, we are willing to come and take up the classes, whether it is outdoor or maybe even if we minimize the number of students and take it batch wise. Like we were planning to have classes batch wise, like if it is 150 students, we make them divide them into sections. We had a plan of doing that also, But eventually, what we from the feedback of parents, we have come to understand that they are not very keen on sending their like students to colleges and schools. So I don't know how we can go about it, but maybe if the situation becomes better, we hope that we'll be able to start the classes. Yeah. So
Yeah, so
I
I
really
think one thing I should also make clear that, like all of these is that, sometime in the near future, the case numbers
right
are low enough,
lower. Right.
to start these things,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in person. Because I mean, there's no point of having such strategies before the case numbers
Before
are.
that. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I probably should have made this clear, but I mean, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, if we don't, if the case numbers are not below certain threshold, no input, I mean, any in-person activity is a potential time
Can
bomb.
be done. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Also, all of this is assuming that, sometime in the very near future, we have, I mean, this is for the time period when the case numbers are low enough for,
Mm-hmm.
to resume activities,
It
but
is
at the same time, we do not have a vaccine yet.
right. Right.
Probably that's the
Mm-hmm.
time
Right.
we are talking.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, one thing I wanted to talk about is basically one of the institutes that I'm part of, like the Painter Institute here. So this is this is essentially um, a model for, so this is a model for research, how research is going on. But there too, Perimeter is starting batch by batch, activity at the moment. What they have decided to do is that, they have divided the students and faculties into two groups. Uh, and the first group goes to the institute on Mondays and Tuesdays. Then Wednesday is reserved for cleaning slash, disinfecting the whole institute as much as possible. And then, then the other group goes to the institute on Thursdays and Fridays. So that way you're at least, cutting down on the interaction between different groups. So you could imagine similar solutions once in-person activity starts, that you can have maths classes on Mondays and Tuesdays, and then you can have other departments come in on Thursdays and Fridays. So that way you are making sure that there isn't a too much mingling between different people. So I mean, this is just a part to reduce the risk effectively. So the other thing is that the moment you switch to such hybrid classes, there's also a challenge in terms of how you how you uh, how you decide to design your courses. So for example, I mean, you only want to have face-to-face interaction on the topics which are critical to have such a component. Um, the other challenge is that the moment you have an online part, usually it's found out that online materials are not very engaging, and students are not very engaged in such materials. So how do you make sure that the online and the self learning materials are engaging enough for students, so that they can learn something of value? So these are questions you have to assess before you proceed on a blended model. How do you make the self-learning slash project component more engaging, and what do you put in for the self-learning material? Um, the other question is, how do you design the online part of your curriculum? And these are somewhat difficult to come up with these solutions in the short term, but that's a challenge that we have been thrown, and we have to do our best to to come up with solutions which works both in the short term as well as in the long run. So some things which people have tried out, and I personally find project-based learning or continuous evaluations in terms of assignments the best for myself to learn new material. And again, that may be different for other people. So it's a very challenging task to come up with the crucial mix of of things in the curriculum which will help the student to learn the most from the online material. So one thing I wanted, so talking of evaluation, so I mean, I have personally found that continuous evaluations where you have assignments where a student has to work through them, the best to learn a subject. The problem is that the moment you start on that, you also have to grade a lot of, as in the teacher has to grade a lot of these things on their own, and doing it, you also have to shift everything of that sorts to a new system, which is usually a bit difficult. So I wanted to talk about a particular thing. So how we do the grading, in how we have been managing the grading in University of Waterloo, and what can be learned from there. So usually grading involves, in my opinion, 3 steps. So first is basically you have to collect all the answer books. Then you grade each of these answer books in your own time. And then finally you organize the grades of all the students. The problem is, with COVID, I think the most impacted part is collecting all sorts of assignments and stuff. So I mean, let's assume you have given out an assignment to your students. They'll send you their answers through through email or WhatsApp or whatever. So you have to first collect them together in a way which is which you can grade. Then you grade all these answer books, and then you organize all the marks of all the students. Either you use Excel or you use some sort of paper document, but you have to do all of these yourself. So what we have been using in Waterloo is this software called CrowdMark. So what it does is that it automates all of the this step and this step. So the only thing a teacher has to do is basically grade the questions. The problem is this is basically an outline of how it looks like. So that there are these 3 questions which I had which I had to grade. So students had submitted their solutions in each of these in their respective columns. So all I had to do was basically open up their solutions, look at what their solution is, give their grades, and that's automatically exported to a sheet, and it's added and everything is done automatically. This definitely saves up quite a bit of time. Now, the thing is, like, this particular software, CrowdMark, is a proprietary software, meaning that it's quite expensive. I don't know the exact amount what it costs, but it's quite expensive, and it may not be feasible for it might not be feasible for individuals to buy it, for example. However, I do think that either developing a software, someone in India, or just coming up with some solution to automate these 2 parts is not that difficult. So this provides an opportunity for people to think about it, that what can we do to really to come up with a solution which can deal with this in an automatic manner. The other thing, actually, I think the previous speakers were touching on it a bit when I joined. It's the issue of how you learn, whether you learn it synchronously. So basically, the traditional classroom environment is synchronous learning, where all the students are learning the material at the same time. And that sort of environment is definitely more engaging and effective, and it allows for some sort of instant feedback, which helps the student to understand where their problem is, and then correct that. However, I mean, this has become almost impossible in the current times. The other type of learning is essentially asynchronous. So can you put out material, then the student can learn at their own pace, and they don't need to learn it at the same time. So it gives more flexibility for the students to learn their material, and also someone can go through the same material more than once. Now, so about this, I wanted to provide another case study of discussion forums, which is a great example of where you have such asynchronous learning. So at Waterloo, one of the platforms that we use is what is known as Piazza. So Piazza is essentially a discussion forum. So where students can post their questions, they'll just put a new post, and if they have a problem, they'll just ask a question here. And either the teacher, the teaching assistant, or whoever, if they see the doubt and thinks that they have the answer, they can post the solution. And in fact, other students can also answer the doubts of some other student. So what that makes is that I mean, you could think about such platforms also. For example, in Jorhat, I mean, it need not be restricted to a single institute as well. And I mean, if you don't have a specialized platform for discussion, you could in principle have also use publicly available platforms like either a Facebook group or a Google group, and you can in fact pool your resources together from for all the colleges which are under, for example, Dibrigarh University, to pool their resources together and have a discussion platform which helps students learn the material at their own time. So some of the pros and cons of such a platform is that first of all, like, if many students have this exact same doubt, then the answer is publicly available to everyone. So you don't need to answer the same doubts over and over again. And the other is that other students can contribute, which reduces somewhat of the workload on the teacher. And it also reduces the reliance on very high-speed internet, because you are not relying on video communication. That makes it somewhat less reliant on high-speed internet. The problem, what I have faced is that it requires good communication between students and the teacher. So you could imagine a scenario where the students want to ask something, but their question is not very clear, and you're not in person to really ask them to reframe the question in real time. So that is, I think, the main challenge of having a discussion platform which is fruitful to everyone. Yeah. The other thing I want to say is that, yeah, I mean, I hope you don't mind me for saying this, because it is a gloomy time. But also, this is a quote that's usually attributed to Einstein, which says that, in the middle of any difficulty lies opportunity. And I think this is very much true. So even though, we are faced with this difficult challenge, it has presented us with some opportunities to build things in a better way. So, I mean, some general questions to ponder about. I mean, when we are thinking of rebuilding the education system as it was, is that so I mean, this is a question actually I want to pose to everyone who's on the call. That if you were given one thing to change so that the new system that we build is better than the old one, what is the one thing that we will change? Like, I mean, basically I'm saying that we have an education system post-COVID, and we had the education system pre-COVID. what is the one thing that you would want to change so that the post-COVID system is better than the pre-COVID one? I would like some feedback. That would be, I mean, if you have some feedback, I mean, this was supposed to be, a question for everyone to contribute so that, we can come up with a bunch of solutions and, we can think about it. As I said, I'm not structuring this talk in a way that, by pretending that, I have the answer to this. So it would be good if you have some feedback on this. Some other questions are basically, how can we build an education system which, which addresses the inequalities of the society so that, education is accessible to everyone. So those are questions. I mean, these are more questions at a policy level, and I know that, maybe not necessarily something that, we all have a control over. But at the same time, I mean, even at the college level, there's a lot of things that can be done, I believe, and it's good to think about how we can do that for the future. So one such thing that I have thought is possible, especially for say this for institutions in Jorhat, for example. There are multiple colleges where teachers are teaching the same material to different groups of people. So now, so that is a huge duplication of effort. So usually when you're teaching in classroom environments, you are teaching to small groups of students where it makes sense that someone is teaching only that small group. But now that we have a lot of the institutions are moving their education online, you can think of collaborative efforts between different institutions. So for example, you have all the colleges in Jorhat coming together. You have a discussion platform that's open to all the students in those institutes. So you definitely have a larger pool of students who are engaging with each other. And also you can play to the strength of all the teachers. So you and that way, I mean, you can pool your resources for, say, technological help and everything. So that's a thing. I believe that such collaborative efforts should be encouraged, and that definitely helps reduce the reliance on a lot of on just a few individuals. I do think that such opportunities are present in the current scenario. The other thing I want to offer is that even without COVID, one of the things that we were facing before that, I mean, this is a very pertinent threat that we have for the employment of the students. We may not be thinking that much at the moment, but very soon we will be at a moment where almost all the jobs that we humans traditionally do can be done by artificial intelligence. So it's good to think about about ways to build an education system. So this is something a lot of people have been talking about, that we need to overhaul our education system so that the students are prepared for a job market where AI presents a huge threat. So according to Yuval Noah Harari, who is a best-selling author, an average employee in the 2030s and 2040s will probably hold a job for only less than 5 to 10 years before completely changing his or her job. So for example, you're working as I don't even know what are the jobs that will be present which cannot be done by AI in some time from now. So the focus should be on on quickly learning new things. So traditional jobs used to be something where you're trained for 5-10 years for a particular job, and then you do that job for the rest of your life. that model is not going to be valid as the, as students come into the new job market of the future years. So I think at a policy level, it's also good to be taking this disruption as an opportunity to adapt your curriculum in such to deal with such threats in the future. The other opportunities I believe is there is the, is trying to present pre-recorded lectures. So that way you are, first of all, that gives the incentive for teachers that, you possibly have the incentive for reaching to a wider audience. So for example, um, in Jorhat, in Assam, you have, the same syllabus is being followed by every college under Dibrigarh University. So can you design lectures which are catered towards the students of these institutions? So you can, I mean, once you have such recorded lectures, it can be used over and over again. The benefits for the students of having such a resource is that, he or she can learn at their own pace. And the reason I prefer pre-recorded lectures is that, if during the lecture there's some part which is not clear to me, I can immediately go back and listen to that part again. So I think this definitely provides a very good opportunity to think about such things, and remember that, for Assam, for example, we don't really have lectures in Assamese in the vernacular language for the syllabus that's followed by, say, Dibrigarh University or Guwahati University. So it's a good thing to be. I would really urge people to think about such things, and you can put your videos on YouTube, which can be used over and over for the next 5-6 years, and which is something to ponder about. And remember that, most of these online lectures started out in that way. For example, the Khan Academy, which, by the way, I mean, this is a screenshot from their YouTube page. They have nearly 2 million views on their videos. And the Khan Academy essentially started when its founder, Salman Khan, started tutoring his cousins. And that's how the whole thing started. Okay, I see someone drawing on my screen, but that's fine. So I mean, the point I'm trying to make is that there is an opportunity to put out online resources which are useful to people around Assam and people around, I mean, even beyond Assam. So it's good for teachers who have been teaching this material for a long time to think about online resources which can be used by everyone. I think that's more or less what I have to say. Another thing I wanted to say was, what are the challenges that lie ahead? So first and foremost, I think that, whenever the classes start in person effectively, the top priority should be that, how can we ensure that, there isn't another outbreak, especially not in the college. So I think those things should be the top priority for the colleges. Another very big challenge is that the employment opportunity will be very, it will be vastly reduced for the coming year. Not just the coming year, but for the coming few years. That's the harsh reality of the current landscape. The Indian GDP is predicted to grow at less than 2.5% this year. I think that's the lowest in a number of years at the moment. The other challenges, which I'm sure people are thinking about right now, is that all these examinations are being delayed all over the country. How does that impact the next cycle of admissions, for example? And more such questions that I couldn't think about. I think that's all I have had to say. So thank you for participating in this talk.
Thank you, Supranto, for your resourceful deliberation. Actually, we have a question. So I think I just read out this question. This is related to the examination pattern. Just talked about that.
Right.
The question is by Plavan Bhuya. He asks, what about the practical examinations, irrespective of various disciplines in schools and colleges, and how to address it? Like, is it possible, or what are the challenges we face in case of practical examination?
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see the challenge there. I don't have an answer, to be honest. That I don't know. I mean, the best you can possibly do is have very small number of even people in a batch participating in such practice, and it's not just about practical examinations, but any lab activity that that you engage in. The moment you're indoors, it directly increases the threat of contracting the virus, for example. And yeah, I don't think I know the solution to that. In Waterloo here, I can tell you some stuff about what's going on here in terms of research.
Right.
So what has been happening is that for the last few months, what's going on is that for research labs where their research is very critical, the way they have managed is that they have time slots for people. So for example, you have a lab where 20 people come usually to work. Now they have time slots, for 2 days in a week, and at a time there's only 4 or 5 people present in the lab. Okay. So that way you are, reducing the number of people who are in contact with each other, and you're sort of creating somewhat of a bubble.
Right.
I think that's the only thing you can do. And
yeah. Thank you, Supranto. Yeah, Supranto has talked about some of the methods we can employ. Like he's talked about collaboration with other colleges, and about pre-recorded lectures, which can be kept for the use of the students even later. So some of the solutions that he has offered, I'm sure we'll be able to make use of them, and which are quite feasible, I guess. So thank you, Supranto, for being with us and giving us a very wide kind of resourceful deliberation on this issue, on the pertinent issue. Thank you, and wish you all the best, and we hope to meet again. Yeah, thank you so much. Right.
Okay.
Take over, Momi, if you have to say anything. Yeah.
Thank you, Supranto, for accepting our invitation to be a part of this webinar. And I hope that we will have your cooperation in the later days also, and wish you a very bright future. Thank you, Supranto. So, now we have come to the end of today's session, second technical session. So, thank you, respected academicians, research scholars, and students, and the international speakers. Thank you all. Hope we will meet you again in tomorrow's third technical session. In the third technical session, there will be Dr. Neelanjan Rai, Professor, D.C.B University, the Department of Education. So, looking forward to your participation in the third technical session also. Thank you. So
Thank you, ma'am.
thank you so much. So we are going to end up the session.